I just want to start out with, we showed this film in '97 here in this theater, actually as part of the Witnessing for Everyday Heroes, which was a Human Rights Watch Film Society retrospective of your work. And it struck me because rewatching this earlier this morning, there's a lot of witnessing in the film, and there's a lot of cross-cutting between Michael Boatman and Lori Petty, and then immediately there's a sea of sort of white officers that are just staring directly into the camera. And I was wondering if you could talk about your approach to the staging in this film, which I think is interesting, in the cinematography, because the film starts with this comic book fantasy of JJ's as he's graduating the academy, and this is what he thinks is going to be this hero cop. And the film continues to be sort of surreal with lots of blues and oranges, but becomes extremely realistic in the type of sort of institutionalized racism and power dynamics that we've seen in the news across the country with, a couple weeks ago, the U.S. Justice Department released a report on Baltimore. We've seen reports on Ferguson. And I just wonder if you could talk about that choice, the stylistic choice that you made to, this is not shot in a sort of what we would typically see in these message movies in like a sort of cinema verite way. Can you talk about that decision?
Well, I wanted to do it, shoot it from JJ's point of view, in a sense when he was young, he read a lot of comic books, and if you read the comic books or saw them, usually the colors are very saturated. They were like blues and yellows, and you saw police comic books. So I took that motif and applied it here in the beginning, and as JJ becomes more mature and less naive, let's say, it becomes more his point of view, but no longer the sort of dream and romanticizing the police department. And that's what I say, the story is based on a number of factual things that happened. But primarily it's based on Johnny Johnson's life in the police department, life in Signal Hill Sheriff's Department, where he was the first black officer that integrated the department when there was this murder of this young athlete that supposedly had killed himself in jail, and there was no evidence to prove that that could have happened. Yet still, the police were exonerated or whatever it is, and there were other incidents. In LA, there was this group of sheriff officers that was in the county. They had a name like the Rough Riders or something like that, and they had this reputation of being so brutal and actually killing people, to the point where there was this famous news reporter in LA named Baxter Ward, who every other day he would come on the station complaining about the activity of these police officers, but no one did anything about it. And the Teddy Woods incident, the one that Ice Cube plays, is based on another real story. So all of these things were events that actually happened, and I just sort of tied them together and made it into a narrative to JJ's story.
How did you come to this story? I mean, I know you were, after To Sleep with Anger, you worked on America Becoming with Daisha Kim Gibson, and then it was several years before this was released, and I was wondering if you could talk about the process of, because I believe this was actually based on another screenplay, correct?
Chet Walker, who's a famous basketball player, became a producer, started to produce films, and he had the Johnny Lee Johnson story, and he had a script written on it, and he came to me with it, and I liked it. But like most material, you sort of have to make your own and rewrite it and things like that, and that's what I did. The original script was basically about John Lee Johnson, and I wanted to broaden it and make it, much more of a story that was symptomatic of all police, not all, but a number of departments around the country, and so I included all these other stories.
Quite famously, there were some issues in the post-production period of this film, including a infamous trailer that Miramax cut for this, which is basically like, makes it seem like a Boys to the Hood movie starring Ice Cube. Can you talk a little bit about that struggle to get this released? Because I believe it was finished in '94 and then not actually seen until 1995.
I don't know when it exactly released, but I mean, there's always problems with films, in some form or another. And it started off with trying to get the financing for it, and we went to studios and independent producers and things like that. And it was a very subtle script at first, and so they kept wanting to make sure everyone understood what the movie was about. And if someone died in the movie, they wanted it to be known that it died. For example, like when Greenspan died, was killed, let's say. I had it where his bicyclists were riding up the hill, and they spotted the body, but you don't see that. You see the reaction, and then you see the next note in the morgue. I mean, the body's in the morgue. There's still no word of who it is, But it's quite obvious, that it's Greenspan. And then later on, it comes out that it's Greenspan. Well, the studios want it, or producers, independent producers want the artist to be clear that it's Greenspan. So I had to write in about 5 or 6 times, Greenspan is dead. Greenspan is dead. I said, no, he's dead. Okay. And then the last time, which was a kicker, was when the judge, she's in the room with the attorneys and things like that, and she discovers that Greenspan is dead. She turns right into the camera, and Greenspan is dead? I was like, God almighty, And the French company came in, CB2000 came in, and they read the script, and they said, Charles, it's overwritten. I said, thank God, someone with some sense, yeah, it is. So we just stripped everything, And then there was some other issues we had with some of the producers. I mean, I don't want to go into that because it's really embarrassing, and I don't want to cast a bad light on CB2000, but they don't exist anymore. But you wouldn't believe the stuff you had to go through. But Miramax, when they picked up the film, and they wanted to change it to be more of an action-packed kind of thing with guns and language, change the more four-letter words, whatever in the language. And what happened was they screened the film in New Jersey. They did a test screening in New Jersey. And the people in the audience, what the audience the film was for. I can see that when we looked at the line, because there were fights in the line, about kind of strange things were going on. And I looked at it and said, no, this is the audience. And so, but they did a test, they took down responses. They took down responses, and comments, obviously, a lot of people, they thought it was real, they thought it was a documentary. They didn't know there was music in it because it was rap, and they thought it was about Ice Cube. And so they were like, where's Ice Cube? Where's Ice Cube? And Ice Cube, he just has a cameo role, a very small role. I mean, and there was some issue about that. He's really a nice person and really good in many ways, but there's a lot of baggage comes with certain kinds of people for commercial reasons and shows. I mean, like I said, he was very good, but it set the film up to be, more action-packed, and we resisted the sort of interpretation Miramax put on it, and the posters and all that sort of thing like that. And I haven't seen the trailer, but I heard you were telling me about it, and I don't want to see it.
I would avoid it. It's not the movie. It's not a trailer for the movie that we just saw. It makes it look like you're gonna come and Ice Cube's gonna be doing the soundtrack rather than quoting Black or Blue.
Yeah, and the person who did the soundtrack is Stephen James Taylor, who is really a wonderful person. I mean, he's done just about all my films, and I can't say enough about it. But if you want a person to score your film, just check out Stephen James Taylor. He doesn't charge very much.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you next. I think that there's a lot of jazz influence, but there's also some very strange, musical screeching manipulation notes, and especially when as you get more and more into the insane conspiracy theory, it becomes very jarring. And I want to know, what was your did you do a lot of work with Stephen on these kind of choices?
Yes, Stephen has all sorts of instruments. I mean, he has this keyboard kind of an instrument that is so complicated. It's like I don't know what it's like. It's really all these keys on it. And I think he and another person is the only one that have this thing. And he used a lot of that, he used a lot of, and anything that can make it sound, he'll use, and which is very good because you come up with these really strange sounds and very effective and works well with the film, and they don't really stand out, but they're there.
I'd like to open questions up from the audience. If anyone, please raise your hands. I'll call on you and then repeat your question so everyone can hear. Yes, in the front here.
Louder.
I'll repeat the question.
Hi, Diane Campbell, Network. I want to know, the film you made, how relevant is it to today, what's going on today? Are you thinking about doing something like Black Lives Matter, to do some kind of a writing for that? Yes, she's still mumbling. Is that what you did?
She's still mumbling.
Today? And are you thinking about doing something else?
All of the question, right?
Yeah.
One of the things is that, talking about Black Lives Matter, well, it's always been an issue where I grew up. I mean, it's a continuation in a sense. It's just that it's more clear and it's exposed. I mean, there were killings. I mean, kids were being killed and victimized by the police. But no one did anything about it. It wasn't until Rodney King was exposed, brutality of the police. When we kind of just accepted it to a certain extent. There used to be like 77, if you've been to Los Angeles, 77 police stations, a very well-known police station. And, and all the kids had to go through 77 at some point. Even I went through it. And they'd come out, beat up and, bones broken and that sort of thing. But they would say, well, he fell down some stairs or something like that. And 77 is only one story, And so, but no one asked, well, how can he fall down 3 steps of stairs and do all that damage, But the papers and everyone are just accepting. And there was a police chief, Gates, who initiated the use of this baton. It was like a special baton that had a handle that comes out this way. And a number of black people were arrested, were strangled to death with this baton. And it took a while for the press and people to, to say something about it. And when they questioned him on it, why so many black people were killed by it, his response was that, well, black people are built differently. Their throats are built differently. So when they put the baton around their throat, it cuts off their artery, and it's like people accepted that, but they got rid of the baton, so we can't use that anymore. But it was all these kids were being shot, and they planted a gun on him, and said, well, he had a gun, so we had to shoot, all this kind of stuff. So that was an ongoing thing, and it never really, it never really changed. And it just got more and more, and there's like, with stand your ground and things like that, it just escalated and escalated and escalated to a point where, I have 2 kids, and I worry about them when they go out, and I have to train them, teach them very early, certain things you don't do around police, you don't make a move, you don't do this, or whatever it is, and even that doesn't help. I mean, you don't have to do anything and you get shot, So when I did this film, I wanted to sort of expose a lot of these, issues that the community was facing with the police department, and it's nothing new or anything like that, but it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I feel, but I mean, it's something that you want to continue because to do other projects like it, because it's an ongoing thing. I wish I did have another story to do it. Okay.
Any other audience? Oh, yes.
Well, one of the chilling moments in the movie comes actually very early when the sister is stopped in the car. Because the line where she says, you must feel like a big man right now, or something to the officer, and he stops her, re-arrests her again, is something that Sandra Bland's originally had said to the officer during that stop, so that was a very chilling moment. And I wanted to ask you about how you work with the actor Michael Boatman, because his art for me is pretty spectacular, so could you talk a little bit about your process and what you do?
So the question was, was the observation that the initial stop in the first part of the movie, where the white officer comes back and re-stops the woman, and she says, "You must feel like a big man," and that's something that Sandra Bland was supposed to have said in her arrest. And then she asked, the rest of the question was how, because Michael Boatman's character arc is so dramatic and so spectacular, how did Charles work with Michael Boatman to craft this character?
Well, one of the characters, one of the themes of the story is how could you, have good intentions and end up corrupt and be a part of a conspiracy, or and be a part of the criminal element in the police department when your intentions are good, and all it takes is just one little mistake, one little lie that you think you're doing the right thing, and that's and that's the thing that initiates all these problems. And I wanted the character to be like Michael Boatman, just a young, naive person comes in with his dreams, and over a period of time he becomes unwittingly involved in a case, thinking he's doing the wrong thing, and he ends up realizing that the journey he's taken, and he discovers who he is, and he's done all this damage. So he pays for it. Like he's the only one that pays for it. But Michael Boatman is really a fine person to work with, a really good actor. It's one of these. I've worked with actors, unfortunately, that you can't tell them anything. And God, that's a nightmare. But when you work with someone who's working with you, they're trying to get to the same spot, you see them and you want them to get. It's such a pleasure. And Michael is that kind of person. He's very smart. He understood the character and where we wanted to go. And it was a pleasure working with him.
Is there other any? Oh yes. Right there.
So I enjoyed seeing the film here. And what was the first, since it's very complicated, what was the first, if you remember, what did you start shooting first? Since it's there's a lot of emotion involved, so how did you start?
What did I start shooting first? I don't remember exactly what scene we started. We usually sort of go in, start, just some simple scene or something. All those things are important, I think, but just something that doesn't have that emotional thing to it first, where actors can feel where they are and the crew gets settled and things like that. But the way film is, you have to just jump around or whatever, because some actors can't make it to certain times or whatever it is, or all sorts of things that prevent you from doing it in a chronological order or some sort of order or a strict order. You may shoot the end, end last or whatever is coming first or whatever. So I don't remember.
Another question?
Here's someone.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I noticed at the end the film is dedicated to Robin Barrel. Who is Robin Barrel?
In the end, the film is dedicated to Robin Barrel? Robert Barrel? And who is that?
I don't know. There's not. A lot of producers. Everyone had someone that they want to thank or recognize or something like that. And at that point, I'm out of the picture. I'm out of the picture. But I can't remember. I'm sure it's important to somebody. It's shameful because could have been some person, relative or something.
And we have time for one last question. Yes.
I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was interesting that the two main protagonists were both in a similar situation. One was a woman, one was a black man. They were both first, and so they became natural allies. And I just wonder how that evolved for you as a story. Like, what decision you made to say, I'm going to make his ally also someone who is kind of an outsider here. I guess she was also a lot of credits. And she was, I assume she was Jewish, or maybe she wasn't even Jewish, and maybe it was knowing that into it was the way to antagonize her. But I just thought that was an interesting choice, and I wanted to talk about that.
So the question was, what was the storytelling decision behind making JJ's ally, Lori Petty's character, Deborah, who was the first woman and also Jewish, and what was the story, the decision to make that the focus of this film?
Well, like I said, the stories in the film are based on actual events and people to some extent. A little bit of exaggeration, of course, but one of the things was I went on a ride-along. I don't know if you've ever gone on a ride-along with the police department. If you really want to experience some excitement and a roller coaster ride, with your stomach up here, go on a ride-along at one of the most active police stations. And I went along and I went to a murder, a stabbing, police being shot at, and you're right in the middle of it, And it's like, I went on a night shift, it was in the full moon on a Friday night, and it was scary. It took me a week to come down. One of the things you do, you learn how to, you understand a police officer in the sense that they do it every night. And the stress and everything, it's just, it's no wonder that they do what they do the way they do it, because when they leave the police department, they're frightened. They have this pep talk with the watch commander who tells them, you know, it's not about arresting anyone. You come back alive, you know, and you take care of your partner. And the thing was that there was this women police that they don't respect unless they're really really dangerous and violent and all this stuff like that. There was one lady who was trying to make an arrest. We came to her aid, another police, the watch commander was right there. And she had trouble trying to arrest this guy. And she was at a little mace can or something like that. And the watch commander had to take over and try to put the handcuffs. He had trouble putting the handcuffs on this guy. And she just stood there, you know. And anyway, when she put him in the car and took him off, he was so angry with this woman. You know, he was saying, like, "Could you see what she did? I mean, I had problems arresting this guy, and I put the handcuffs on, and she just stood there." And later on that night, these two women police officers, plainclothes women police officers, and they talk like sailors. You know, the language they use, and all this sort of thing like that. And they would shoot you in a minute. Now, they were the women that he respected and liked, you know, because they knew that if something happened, their back, they would be, what is this expression called?
You got their back.
Yeah, watch back, whatever it is. And so there was this inherent dislike for weak people, and particularly for women if they haven't proven themselves. And where I got this story from, it was an article in the paper about this Jewish cop who was about to retire, and he talked about his experience being in the department and all the racism he had to take and so on and so on. You know, that he was alone. And one of the things being a police officer, it's a community that you get support from your officers, from other officers. If you don't have that, you know, your life is in danger. You know, you don't get any help. Sometimes you're sent into a place where, and purposely you get injured. But anyway, but I wanted to have a person who's kind of ambiguous in a way. That obviously she's a female, but you don't know what she is, and this is important. You know, she's just trying to do her job. Even just trying to do her job, she has all these names. She's being branded as this such and such and such. You know, so I wanted that dynamic. I wanted to have a relationship between Michael Boatman and her. That isn't a love relationship, but one of dependence and respect. You know, whereas it doesn't have to be a romantic thing. But one of the things is that in police officers, you learn that the only people that they trust are other police officers, because they think that they're the only ones that can understand them. And so there's a high rate of divorce and all sorts of crazy stuff in their family. So the thing was, JJ's girlfriend was jealous because Lori Petty's character had a more profound relationship with JJ than she could have, or ever have, in a sense. So I wanted that sort of tension and jealousy to come out, not the romantic conflict or that sort of thing, but one where she knew that she could compete on a certain level with Lori Petty as a character. If that makes any sense.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. So if you haven't seen that, you should definitely go get your tickets and come back to watch it. It's one of the best American films in the last 30 years.
One of the most common mistakes that independent filmmakers make is feeling like your picture is finished when you lock picture. You focus on actors, cinematography, the writing. People spend 10 years on a screenplay. It's a labor of love. They get the financing. They lock picture, they finish it, and then they expect to hand it off to someone. And as independent filmmakers in 2010, that's not where it ends. You need to be able to market and understand the distribution of your film.
Are we doing Wizard of Oz analogies? Are we really doing this?
Go for it.
But I mean, what they had before was just fine, and they had their own stories, their own way of telling stories, and each other. And that worked on the yellow brick road to freedom.
So.